What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team. In action. What's up, dudes? Just coming off a weekend, I just went to visit Matt McCusker. He did a show out in San Diego. He killed it. It's just so cool to see him flying high. We're walking around San Diego and people are coming up and be like, "Oh, that's Matt." You know, it's pretty wild.
Dude, I'm in San Diego, man. Are you still there?
No. San Diego, my second favorite city in the world. New York being number one. But yeah, San Diego is wonderful. But the reason I'm bringing it up is, you know, as everybody knows, Matt helped start this team, and seeing from where he started to where he is now is just unbelievable. It just really is. I'm super pumped for him. Couldn't be more proud of him. Happy for him and his family. And it's just a testament to setting goals and then sticking with it for an absurd amount of time, because he basically, and he would tell you this if you were here, you know, it took him probably a decade, if not more. I actually think more, to get his career off the ground in comedy. So just super pumped for him.
But he's rich and famous. Like, does setting goals and sticking to them for an absurdly long time, you know, pay dividends for the little guy like me, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, no, 100%. I mean, that's where it gets into, you know, a lot of people say that they are on a good diet, but then if you had a camera behind them, you would see that they're actually not on a good diet, you know, for 87% of the day. Similarly to building your career and following your goals. You might have had a goal for a long time, but the goal doesn't care about how long you've had it for. The goal cares about how much input, how many seeds have you planted towards it.
So I suppose,
you don't get to harvest anything you haven't planted. What's up, buddy?
Yeah, so I guess part of the perception is I see Matt McCusker sitting on a couch and telling jokes and and making a living doing that, supporting his family doing that. And I'm like, I feel kind of shortchanged because he's got it so easy. But I suppose there's an iceberg that's 5 times or 10 times as big as hard work and dedication without even seeing the light at the end of the tunnel that he had to go through, right?
Absolutely. And what I would also say, I would evolve that a tiny bit. I was listening to John Danaher, who is arguably the most successful Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach of all time. And he was actually talking about, it's actually this Goldilocks zone right in the middle, about how it requires a lot of work, but hard work is a bit of a misnomer. It's what he's saying is just more of the mundane activities every single day, and you just increase the density over time. So it's not like Matt, when he's going to do these comedy shows, is from what he would say is really grinding it out. Instead, it's, well, I've showed up for the 5,000th time, and I just got incrementally better. Like our buddy Kaizen would say, that whole philosophy is just, you know, a small percentage point better today than you were yesterday. And eventually that compounds to such a degree where it's not one rep that you could look at that says, oh, that was the rep that made my bicep grow. Rather, it's all of the mundane reps that I did every single day for 5 years straight. And now I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger. MFG, what's your take on this?
Yeah, man, it's cumulative effort. You know what I mean? And it's developing those habits that it just becomes automatic. And then you pick your head up one day and you've been doing it for 4 or 5 years, and you're like, holy shit, I've come quite a far way, you know?
Right.
It's never the thing you think it's going to be. It's never the one big moment. There's never one big thing. It's just slowly fucking grinding away and chipping away at something. You know what I mean? And I think that, you know, seeing what Matt and Shane have done has shown that in a really tangible way now, which is cool to see. You know what I mean? Makes it real. You know, and people like yourself and Larry, you know what I mean, that have had similar experiences, it really kind of resets the group narrative, if that makes sense.
Larry, to that point, I have found myself on occasion, but forcing the occasion of saying, "Oh, okay, I I've made it, or I've hit the next stage," if that makes sense. But that was almost a forced effort of saying, "Wait a second, take a time out, turn around, and look at the distance between where you came from and where you are." Larry, has it been similar for you, or have there been these avalanches that were so obvious of success for you?
I think everybody has their own definition of success. For some, being able to get up in the morning and take the first step. For others, it's an end goal that they ultimately accomplish. And I think it's always, if it's just got to be that particular end result, it's always disappointing when you get there, because it's never quite what you thought it was going to be. And because it's like, Mike was saying, you're growing in the process, but you're unaware of your growth, because sometimes it seems so micro incremental that I think the biggest challenge most people face is not talking themselves out of continuing. And, we're so evidence oriented. If we don't see it and we're not experiencing it, then it must not be happening to us. So I think that's why it's so important that the vision has got to be stronger than current reality, or current reality will suck you in every single time.
Yeah, what do they say? It's like, if you can accomplish anything you want as long as you have a strong enough why. Something along those lines. There have been different derivatives of that. If you have a strong enough why, you can accomplish anything.
Your why changes. I think your why changes over time. I think, as you get mature and as you start to see, hey, maybe that why was a little shallow. Maybe there's more depth to what I'm attempting to accomplish in my micro experience here in this thing called life. And in this brief time, I think it's the power of recognizing that we're not only a speck in the universe, but we're the universe in the speck. And I think that's rather empowering to not lose grasp of their concept of something greater than self, whatever that may be, because that's what we're drawing from, to continue this energy and to get out of the lows and not get too high to where you're untethered and you're just floating along thinking that you've accomplished something, but you're not available anymore for anybody else to help them grow.
And Wes, in the example of Matt McCusker, can you think of, does he follow that formula of sticking to the vision beyond whatever the kind of score was on any given day on the journey?
No, I think if Matt were here, what he would tell you is his journey was very much like a roller coaster. That pretending like it was just some straight line up would be a completely false narrative. That maybe that narrative is what people would talk about. Oh my gosh, just look at his straight up progress. When the reality is, he would tell you he's had a love-hate relationship with his craft, which I think we all have experienced. And I think that's true for everybody. Mm-hmm. I'd imagine that when Jiro was dreaming of sushi, sometimes those are nightmares. Sometimes he wants to change and become a carpenter. But it's the commitment to the craft over the long run. In fact, I think if you didn't fall in and out of love with your craft, I think it'd be a boring game and you'd stop that game pretty early on. But Ray, I'm reading this book called 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dan Sullivan. And I've gotten coaching from Dan a few years back, and I think he's an amazing entrepreneurial coach. And the line that I read, Ray, in this book was, the highest form of freedom is based on want and not need. Ray, when I say that, the highest form of freedom is based on what you want versus need, what comes to mind for you?
Well, let's break down that maxim the freedom, right? Let's think of its inverse, which is bondage or slavery or, right? Something like that. And so I would think of, if the ultimate freedom comes from your mastery of your wants, then the opposite comes from mastery over your needs, or like if you can only ever get to covering your needs, that's not true freedom. The true freedom is when you go for what you want. And I'm sure I am, taking the wrong interpretation. But what comes to mind? So what comes to mind is the cliche. Of as long as you have everything that you need, the wants are kind of the wants often are those are labeled as the things that are misguided. Wanting $1 million, wanting a nice car, wanting a nice house, wanting a babe as a girlfriend. How about you? Or I suppose something else that comes to mind is true freedom is knowing the difference between what you want and what you need. And that's not to say to end the hunt for what you want, but just knowing, having the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah, I think that one sentence is really loaded with a whole bunch of different angles at which you could attack. I think, first of all, I think all of the things, the creations, the men and the accomplishments that I admire came from a source of wanting more, not just, I just need to work hard enough to get calories and shelter, and that's it, versus I want to build something outstanding in my life. And I think the more we operate from a wants-based economy rather than just a needs-based economy, the more we can create for each other. So I think if you look at community, if you look at cities, if you look at the world, we are benefiting tremendously from people who thought just outside of the perimeter or significantly outside of the perimeter of themselves and their family. They are creating something for the larger community. I mean, you can look at what we're doing here. If we operated purely on a need, then all of us would not be meeting right now. MFG would not be willing to share his experience and his knowledge with other men. Why? Because why would he? There'd be no benefit to him if he's purely operated off of need. Kyle and Phil and Larry, the same thing. So for some reason,
so Wes, pardon the intro, but I also now think of all of a sudden of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And how I don't suppose Maslow encourages us to stop at the widest part of the pyramid,
right,
where shelter, water, and grub are taken care of.
Right. Yeah, Phil, what comes to mind for you with that sentence?
It reminds me, I guess, I think of something I've been thinking about like a lot in the last few weeks is that I don't know. I guess I've really I think in my whole life I've been very, very anxious person, and for some reason I never thought of myself that way at all until maybe like a couple of years ago. I never really thought that I never really even realized that I have anxiety, but I do have a massive amount of anxiety from childhood.
Hey dudes, sorry for the interruption here. Just wanted to let you know, if you want to join our pro team, go to romasteam.com/pro. You can help support the channel. You will also get access to exclusive content, masterminds, one-on-one sessions, etc. All right, back to the episode.
I guess one of my main anxieties is just comes from my dad's like rage problems, because his rage is so unpredictable. And I would always feel like an enormous, weird, combination of guilt and fear. Whenever I would help him, he would always be working, he restored a old pickup truck, and I would help him with that and stuff. And he would always, freak out every once in a while and start screaming and throwing stuff and stuff. And like I would always try to like find the part that he was looking for or whatever the tool and try to help, solve the problem that he's freaking the hell out about. And that would always make me feel extremely anxious and really just like extreme amount of like tension in my chest and stuff like that or whatever, and I guess having that experience over and over and over as a kid and other stuff, different stuff from my mom also like made me very like afraid of the world in various ways. Because I was thinking a lot about, recently I was thinking about how the last 7 years, or when I had this really, easy software job for a while, I was never making incredible money. I was always actually kind of like having a hard time paying rent because the Silicon Valley is just ridiculous. Like thousand or more dollars for a tiny room in someone's house. It's ridiculous here. But like, I've just been thinking back about how like I was wasting an enormous amount of money. Most of my, like, I would mostly eat out food. I almost never like made food at home. And so that's at least like $1,000 a month maybe that I could have been saving if I had just been, preparing food or whatever. And it's weird to think that like I wasted so much money, but I never, for some reason I've been thinking about this a lot recently, that like I've wasted so much money, but I never really wasted it in fun ways. Like I was thinking about how I've only been to a nice steakhouse once, like $100 steakhouse once. And like, I don't know why I never did that. Like I could have gone to nice restaurants. I could have gone, I could have done stuff with my money instead of like spending it on bullshit. It's weird to think about. Like I could have saved up a little bit and gone on vacations every now and then. I never even considered doing that. And it's, I think partly, not entirely, but I think it's partly because I'm like, one of my main problems in life is when I get into a situation that I feel comfortable, or I guess maybe safe is the word it's a little embarrassing to use, but I think when I feel safe about something, I just want to stay there forever. I just want to stay there and not do anything else. Because it's like, I think, yeah, most of my childhood, I felt very unsafe. Because my parents were like these like kind of violent forces in my life. So you kind of feel like you have nowhere to go really. I think that's why I spent a lot of time in my room on the computer and stuff. And then maybe that's why I like computers a lot.
Do you sorry, Phil, to cut off, but real quick, do you, relative to the topic that we're bringing up, do you feel like your childhood upbringing sort of funneled you into only acting from a place of need? Because if you acted from a place of want, that you either didn't deserve it, or mom and dad would bring the house down because of it, or there wasn't maybe enough surface area for your wants because your parents took up all of the want volume, if that makes sense. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I know for sure. Like I have a very weird, I have a really, really screwed up like mental whatever. Like I have a screwed up like understanding of wants and need, because I think, a lot of the needs weren't really being met. And then my parents would, like, especially my mom would always spend a lot of money, on like gifts and stuff, so like I guess like, I'm sorry, can you ask me the question again? I kind of got what.
So relative to the topic at hand, right? Wanting from or acting from a wants origin versus a needs origin. Because my personal perspective is, because I grew up poor, if you even said that you wanted something, 80% of the time, if not close to 100%, it was not only, hey, we can't afford it, there was almost a sort of like shaming and even asking for it, if that makes sense.
I guess,
Like, oh,
okay, so I
you
guess,
think money grows on trees. You forget to close the door. It's like you grew up in a barn. I remember one time I told a family member that I wanted to be a certain occupation, and this family member was like, "Oh, you can't do that, right?" And meanwhile, this person knew nothing about my intellectual ability, knew nothing about my grades, knew nothing about my work ethic. But that was just to be fair to that person, their reflexive responses to anything beyond basic needs. You think you're going to make it out of here, man? Good luck, And then once you do make it out, oh, must be nice, So anyway, Phil, coming from that perspective and then we'll throw it over to Kyle. Do you feel like you can operate from a wants origin rather than just and solely a needs origin?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of work to do to correct those things, because this is what I was kind of, I guess what my point was a second ago, was that I feel like my wants and needs are kind of screwed up in my head emotionally, because yeah, a lot of times needs weren't necessarily being met, but wants were met in very weird ways. Like, my dad has always had this really, really annoying and psychotic relationship to money, where, when I was younger, he was making a lot of money. He was a painting contractor, and before the economy crashed in 2008, he was making tons of money. And, but he always has this weird compulsion where he's not diligent about anything. That my parents never are diligent about saving money or being proactive. They just think everything's fine until they realize there's a problem, and then they freak the fuck out, and then they're in panic mode or freaking out and totally chaos, and then they're back to as soon as they feel like it's fine again, then they go back to not caring and not paying attention about money at all. So it was always we have infinite money until we have no money, and then it's a giant problem. And then I definitely inherited a lot of that myself. So I don't think that I really. I just think I don't know. I just think it's hard to explain. It's kind of it's chaotic mixture of both. It's not those things aren't separated in the way that they should be, in a healthy way.
No, I think a lot of us can probably relate to, at least lived it or have seen it, this feast or famine and chaotic sort of upbringing, especially around finances. I see it all the time. Kyle, when I ask you to say, hey, tell the group what you want and what's the biggest thing on that list, do you feel any resistance? And if so, why?
Yeah, excuse me, I lost my voice this morning, but I'd say I have a couple of wants here and there, definitely revolving around finances. And I think right off the bat, I see myself achieving it, but the resistance is the path towards that direction, how to get there.
Is there any... So is the resistance for you the lack of clarity of the path, or is any of it self-worth? And by the way, I'm not trying to give you a script here. I'm just curious. Is any of it self-worth? Is any of it, hey, well, either the religion or the narrative or the parenting philosophy that I was brought up on tells me to be humble and not to have pride and to basically only take what you need? Is there any resistance there for you or no?
In the sense of take what I need, I kind of come to terms with it in a sense of it needs to be a balance. There's needs that you need, but also there's wants that you need to attend to, regardless the fact that you need to attend to both. It does also, the way how I see it, when it comes to something as such as wants and needs, I think it's very simple to the fact of how you promise things to yourself or how you promise things to someone else. I think once you break a promise or a habit that you made to yourself, kind of ruins your self identity, ruins your kind of self-worth. And I'm a big believer of, you know, inner child healing and shadow work and stuff like that. And I think, you know, nowadays being able to understand what you need, what you want, and also how things triggers you, I think it comes all hand to hand in regards to your needs and wants, and that constant battle, or controversy in a sense, always happens with me within.
Yeah. No, this both you and Phil, maybe everybody on the team might be interested. I'm reading this book right now called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. So it's called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And it's really interesting. It brings up a lot of patterns that a lot of us are probably exposed to and maybe harbor some resentment for our parents. But then what this book does a great job of is labeling those patterns and then also giving you a psychological way out of those. And one of them being forgiveness. You know, it's like, hey, we expected our parents to be superheroes and they're fucking not, you know? And then also combining that with like, nobody's coming to save you. So number one, have a little bit of grace for the people who raised you, because it's not like they raised their hands and said, hey, we're experts. That's therefore we want to have children. But then also realizing that we ourselves are going to make probably very similar mistakes. Now, hopefully we can learn from our parents' mistakes and from our prior mistakes, but, you know, having grace for others so we can have grace for ourselves. MFG, what comes up for you? Do you feel any resistance if you were to tell the group what you most wanted? And if you do feel resistance, where does that resistance, do you think, come from?
No, I feel no resistance to that at all anymore. But then again, I had a unique opportunity to truly define what I needed, you know what I mean, and only exist on my needs. And because of that, it's, you know, there's a line from a Kanye West song that ain't no question, if I want it, I need it. You know, and so I was fortunate, as fucked up as my parents were. One thing that my father always told me was, listen, you can do anything that you set your mind to. You know what I mean? And you know why? Because you're Michael fucking Gibbons. That's why. And that was just burned into my brain. So now if I, you know, it's just, I'll tell you what I want. All I want is the ability for honest self-expression. You know what I mean? And to me, that's an attainable goal, because I don't need a lot to have that want. You know what I mean? For me to, I can have that want in my current existence and continue to expand upon that, you know, but it's been an interesting practice for me to really identify that the things that I used to want or strive for, or the false idols that I would put up, like, oh, I want to have this car or this house. And then I got the things and they didn't make me happy. They were traps. I'm like, oh, all I want is that I want a Range Rover. And you get a Range Rover and you're like, this thing is a piece of shit. You know what I mean? And it becomes now this piece of metal that is just an obligation in my garage. You know what I mean? I'm looking at it being like, oh, that's $800 a month. Cool. You know, and it's freeing to realize that so much of the things that we think that we want, or the misnomers that will show up, are just a projection of the things that we can give to ourselves.
Well, let me ask you this, because to tease out some of the stuff that you're saying from the great philosopher Kanye West line that you brought up, which I think is pretty interesting, a blending of wants and needs, like wanting something so bad that your brain feels like it needs it. And I would imagine the work would be congruent with that, which reminds me of my favorite line out of the book, Relentless, which was crave the result so bad that the work is irrelevant. MFG, is there some wisdom there of, hey, if you desire something so much, it essentially becomes a need, and if you can live your life perhaps there, what are your thoughts?
Oh, it is a need. It's not. It doesn't become one. It actually is, because when I haven't pursued those wants, you know what I mean, and I've tried to put myself into other confines, there's a price to pay for me. You know what I mean? There's a lack of congruency with my life when I've done that. So and at least that's how I choose to perceive it. You know what I mean? Because and also too, I could afford myself a more luxuries if I were to I could put myself in this box and do very well financially, or not very well. I could go out and make 150 grand a year. You know what I mean? In just traditional construction. But for me to have to contort myself and my personality into that, it's going to come out somewhere else. So for me, in order to be true to myself and to be living like congruently, it's not a want, it's a need. You know what I mean? Because the wheels fall off otherwise.
Larry, do you notice any resistance either with yourself or other people, or just commonly, that there's this resistance to articulating wants versus needs?
Yeah, I think, this has been a really reflective question. And what I have found and probably discovered, through this conversation is I always wanted to be respected. And whether it be through my work or my personality or whatever it was, and then it obviously came down to the common denominator that I wasn't respecting myself. And so the need, the want was the want simply reflected the need. It almost mirrored that the need was you've got to learn how to respect yourself. And that is, I think that's, how I would answer that.
I'm curious if you guys have noticed this pattern. Well, two particular patterns. Number one, as we talk about many times on this team, that the work is dramatically different than the idea. Like the idea is easy. Just for the record, set this straight out there. Ideas are one. I don't even want to say they're 1% of the game. They are, in my opinion, they are dramatically less than even 1% of the game. But the distance between idea and actual execution and iteration number one of the product or of the business or of the whatever it is, there's an enormous chasm between the two. And I have noticed a pattern of when somebody else is not executing on their own ideas or their own wants or needs, they have an abundance of advice for you. You should do this. You should do this. You should do this. And it's like, well, hey, how about you take your shoulds, you push them back to your board game, and you start on your own game. Have you guys noticed a pattern of that? Larry, I'll throw the mic back over to you. Have you noticed that pattern, and what is a respectful response? Because I actually struggle with this. Oftentimes in my business, man, I can tell you, it's on a weekly basis where at least 4 or 5 people tell me the thing that I should do, and not realizing it's like, yeah, I'm aware, right, that this is a potential opportunity. But what you just said takes 8 months of execution. And we already have 25 other projects. So if you want to come in and work for free and execute on that, then be my guest. But how about you turn it around on you and you do the thing that you said I should do? How about you should do that in your own business? Larry, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's like somebody going on a diet and
Yeah.
And you're about to take a bite of pizza, and they go, "Do you know how many calories are in that?"
Yeah,
and the nitrates and the on and on and on, and they give you a whole education in the realm of being a dietitian. But what I have found, rather than be irritated and annoyed by it, it's a reflection again of they're trying to sell themselves. When any time we're trying to sell another, we're trying to sell ourselves. That I am on the right track, don't you think? And that's what we're really doing, but we do it in a less subtle way, we think. And I think the response to that is, oh, where did you get insights into calories on pizza? But not be facetious and not be mean-spirited about it. Come from love. I mean, obviously this person is really passionate about the fact that they're now taking a look at their diet I'm curious as to what led you on to become important to you. So I just kind of throw it back. Otherwise, you get in an argument, or you tell them that, no, that's not how many calories there are. They're actually 273. And now now we're not of any value at all. And I think that the need that I have is that if I'm not of value, then keep my mouth shut, or what am I doing? Okay, if it doesn't produce value, and when I watch Mike when he was grinding and he was creating that, whatever he was creating, because I never found out, but he was really into it, and I was now I forgot. I lost my train of thought on that, but
well, it's a good point, Larry. I think learning the scripting, because I do think there's value in giving your opinion on something if it's meant to really help you. Like me saying to Larry, hey man, I've experienced this pattern in my business. Seems like your business and I'm executing, you might benefit from this, versus saying me not executing at all and me saying you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. At a certain point, it's like, all right, man, I get it. But if we all, again, getting back to our analogy, if we all chopped our own wood, then our ideas that we shared together about chopping wood, and hey, I chopped this type of wood and I did this and I used this pick and this blah, 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 this axe and so on, I think that'd be really helpful. But be careful of offering a whole bunch of advice that's not founded on anything other than, right, like your gut instinct at the time. But if your gut instinct at the time is based off of no work effort, that's a bit of a problem.
It's the bumper sticker advice is like assholes, right? Everybody's got one. I mean, it's that kind of.
Yeah. Ray, what's your perspective on that? Sorry, this is Ray's first time on this team show, so he doesn't know how to use it.
Swear to God, Wes.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I'm back.
There he is.
Wes, can you remind us of the precise language of the quote from Dan Sullivan?
So let me pull it back up here.
Highest form of freedom is based on what you want, not on what you want, but what you need.
No, the other way. Highest form of freedom is based on what you want, not need.
Yeah, got it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think, So if you're going to return to me for some.
Sorry, Ray. Yeah. Phil, we're about to let Phil loose on you, bro. Ray, if you wouldn't mind figuring out your internet shit that's going on, and then we're going to throw it over to Phil. Phil, you take the mic from Ray real quick, and then we'll get back to Ray.
One thing what you guys were talking about recently just made me remember think about is so I'm really interested in game design, meaning the actual design, I'm very interested in the function of video games, not the graphics or the sound or the story or all the other crap. The actual way that the game plays, which is weirdly something that not a lot of people are interested in, even people that make games. For some reason, people are interested in all the graphics and all the marketing and all this other bullshit, and not the actual most important part, which is the way the game actually is. And so it's hard to even find people that are serious about it to talk to. And it's always a little bit isolating. And so I found, a few very, very obscure groups of people that are very interested in it, like I am, to talk to. And a friend of mine who I like a lot, who I talk to about game design a lot, is created this place specifically for the purpose of trying to solve a problem that seems very similar to what you guys are talking about, which is that a lot of times if you talk about game design with other people online or even in person, it comes from this place of like imagination. I don't know. I hope I can really drive this home for you guys, because I know this is probably feeling very like far from what you guys are familiar with, but like it comes from this place of like what's possible. Like you could do this and you could do this, and I thought about this idea, and what about this would be interesting to make in a game. And what my friend I realized is very unhelpful about that is it's like advice. It's like people are just saying in a very ungrounded way. People are saying like, "What about this?" and like having ideas. And he said like, what's it's very kind of pointless to just have ideas and stuff because like they're not grounded. I don't know how to make this. I don't know how to make this more concrete. Damn.
Can I throw
really?
something out there?
Yeah.
I don't know if this will help be the connective tissue. It probably won't be. But what comes to mind for me when I hear you say that is inevitably when I watch an NFL football game with my mother, which is just usually on rare coincidence, she always says like, "Why didn't the guy just run the other way?" Right? Has no baseline at all for the actual understanding of the landscape, and thinking that her idea is like this groundbreaking one. Oh, he should just zigged when he just zagged. Like obviously he should have zigged. So I think to your point, Phil, there's an element of conversation with people who are actually doing it that already in their opinion is baked in the knowing of the landscape. I don't know if that helps connect you, but please take the mic back.
That's part of it. I don't know how to let's see. That's like the first level. There's like a deeper thing I'm trying to get at, which is like damn. I don't know how to explain it. It's a deeper thing, like basically like there's no real purpose. The point is that like there's very little utility in thinking of what's possible in a sense, because there's almost anything is possible. It's like that's a very surface level thing. Like you need to go deeper, and as soon as you go deeper, you're kind of on your own. I think that's kind of my point in a sense. Like you're kind of on your own. Like anytime I'm making a game, for example, if I'm making a video game and I run into a problem, I kind of can't really ask anyone else for help, because for me to ask them for help, they need to understand everything I understand, and that's kind of a lot. You know, it's like a lot of stuff for them to know, and so it takes a long time for them to even get to the point of understanding what the problem is. You know,
yeah.
I don't know. This is really connected to me. I hope it makes some connection for you guys.
No, I can understand that. I think it would make sense in a lot of other domains, especially let's say like athletics. It's very easy to see, let's say in most martial arts, oh, that's a black belt, that's a blue belt, that's a white belt. And there'd be very rare occasions where you could take input from a white belt if you were a black belt. But oftentimes out there in the world and in business and a lot of these other abstract areas that we operate, you don't get to see the belt level of the other person. There's no distinctions other than just perhaps the vocabulary that they're using. It's very hard. I call it the forehead score. I got it from Ray Dalio. It's so easy to accept any advice from people in the absence of some sort of differentiator. So what Ray Dalio, where I got this from, was like, you have to pretend there's a score on their forehead. So the advice that they're giving you in that domain, right, in that particular thing, on a scale of 0 to 10, where is their score? And if you're a level 9 and they're a level 4, then you have to weight that accordingly. At least I find that to be useful. Ray, what is your perspective on that? Have you found that pattern in life?
I think I don't know, Wes. I don't know if we're supposed to keep that, like, do you tell people what their score is?
Absolutely not.
Right.
100% no. Yeah. I've made that mistake. So I can tell you for sure you do not.
Like, yeah, and I think, I suppose most of my life I felt like I was the 4, right? But that's not true anymore. Or like, you know, I have tools in place when I'm on my best days. I've had tools in place to remind myself that I'm a 9 or a 10 visually, and then maybe an 8 like intellectually. But yeah, so do we even know when, like, how do you score yourself, Wes?
Well, I think
is that part of the skill set if you're going to be assigning numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. Like clearly, I love the idea of bringing objectivity to subjectivity. knowing that you're never going to get to the decimal, but I think it's really helpful, especially if you're in a position of leadership. I can tell you, like, my instinct of when anybody comes to me who is emotional, and in this case, let's say like emotionally, they are convinced of something. My biology wants to believe them. And there's a pattern called the emotional veto, like they call it the crybaby's veto or the emotional veto, et cetera, because our biology responds to excitement, responds to extreme sorts of like outlashes and so on because of evolution, essentially. But in things like, let's say in business, it's not the emotional thing that matters, it's the merit that matters. So being able to identify, okay, on a merit-based system, is this recommendation good or bad, regardless of how the person feels about it? Because I can tell you, oftentimes engineers have the best solutions, but they suck at selling it. They'll just tell you, right? Like they'll just tell you as it is, and it's like you take it or leave it. Versus the salesperson will be the most convicted ever, and it very much might not be the right product. Larry, have you found that? What's your perspective on this particular pattern?
Well, I liked your metaphor of the belts, the color of the belts, and we have to kind of know where someone's at. It's kind of like what Phil was talking about, or there's no ability to relate. And for us to grow, sometimes we have to be alone, or we're only mimicking what other people are sharing with us. But I have found my biggest issue is imagining that I'm just a white belt and everybody else is a black belt. And you know, recognizing needless to say, the ideal is to see yourself as a black belt and then do the work necessary to become the black belt. But don't assume that everybody else is at a higher level or has more information or is more knowledgeable or is more creative, or you always come into the situation with a lower perception of yourself. And you and I can't operate to our full potential when we come from a less than perspective of ourselves. We're holding ourselves back because we have a fear that it's not going to be accepted and it's not going to be what others are looking for. And that's what I admire about Phil. Phil is recognizing, Phil's not trying to attempt to become a genius or to become someone who, you know, all of a sudden is broken through the traumatic childhood upbringing that he had. My God, we're supposed to be nurtured and we're supposed to be safe. We're not supposed to see our parents explode in front of us, because obviously we feel like, what the fuck have I done? And how do I rectify this? And what a way to start out in life. I mean, yet by the same token, when we are where we are now in our lives, like all of us, it's, you know, are you going to keep wandering around as a white belt wishing you were black for the rest of your life? Or are you going to watch the phenomenal transition that occurs? We're creating a new program now. We're going to ask more money for it than we've ever asked for any other program. You know, do I have a right to ask people to pay that much? And you know, the answer I should give myself is, you're not charging enough. And because people perceive price as value, you know, that's $100 shirt and that's a $20 shirt. You know, I'd probably feel better in the $100 shirt. You know, now we're getting in wants and needs and things. But to answer your question, I think my life work has always been making sure that I'm not thinking less of myself in any situation, so I can grow from it, I can learn from it, and I can attain what I'm attempting to attain, and that is to be the highest version of myself, to show up full so that I can offer. And I think that's kind of a quest that all of us are on. And I think that's what people find value in, is when they experience, people want to be around people like that.
Yep.
Because they have more to offer than what they want to take away from or get out of it, if you will.
Absolutely love it. Outstanding. Larry, I started a wealth podcast with Ray and one of my other partners called Attic and Alpha. We'd love to have you on there if you're down for talking about business. We focus on the primary asset of wealth building, which is your business. So we'd love to have you on. We do it every day at 10 a.m. if you're down. Plus, I would love to get you out there to more of our clients, et cetera, and what you do. Let's throw this around. Kyle, final words of wisdom, my friend, even though you don't have a voice right now.
I'd say, going back in regards to the analogy of black belts, I'm a practitioner myself. My master taught me that you never, ever underestimate anyone, even yourself. Everyone's on the same level as you. It's more along the lines of who messes up first. And so you counter to counter. Same thing with any punch that's you're taking, any kick you're taking, any attack towards your self-identity, or translating into self-identity, how you see your worth. It's a counter to counter. It's first who has more of the practice in self-discipline, more of the practice of focusing on one move, attack at a time. I think Bruce Lee said this, I'm more scared of a man who practiced a move 10,000 times than a man who knows 10,000 moves.
Practice once a piece. Yeah. Yep. Love it.
I don't want, I just wanted to ask for some advice really quickly, if that's all right, before we wrap up. Do we have another 5 minutes, or is that too long?
We've got 7 minutes, but I need 2 minutes prior to the meeting. So 5 minutes is spot on. Let's do it.
All right. Well, so it just needs to be, it's really just quick, but I have a pretty amazing opportunity coming up tomorrow. I'm interviewing for a lead design role at a company. And obviously if I get that, that would, help me out immensely. But, basically the situation is a friend of mine had lunch with someone who's just started a new studio, and they're creating, they're looking for a lead designer. So, to make a video game. And so,
hell yeah,
I think that I'm totally capable of doing that, but I don't think that my track record shows that, because I've only made one small game before myself. And the work that I did before this, that I got most of my experience from, was basically making games, but they're technically not games. We made enterprise software for companies, teaching people we made video games that teach people how to repair equipment and stuff. So when I'm having an interview with, video game people, they're going to be like, well, that's awesome, but it's technically not a game. So I don't know. I'm just looking for advice on what you guys think about how I can sell myself best. And
if I could throw something out quick to that.
Yeah, do it.
I went into an interview, and there were 35 sitting there, and it was my turn, and I went in, and it was with Union Oil. And I knew nothing about what they were doing or anything. And the guy said, "So why should we hire you?" And I said, "Well, before I answered that, tell me about why this would be a great place for me to work. Tell me what you folks think you are most highly excited about and you feel most proud about it as an organization. I know what I can bring to the party, but I want to make sure it's a good fit for both of us." And he hired me right then.
Wow.
So remember, Phil, you know what you can offer. You may not have been able to show it all yet, but that's not the reason they're going to hire you. They're going to hire you because you've got a great feeling about your ability to bring out the best in others in their work, and you yet want to find out what's wonderful about this organization. And if you do that with the right heart, you'll be able to handle anything that comes your way.
Love it. So Larry,
awesome.
If I had to summarize your perspective, it's go in and realize it's a two-way street, that, each of you are interviewing each other. Kyle, to go round robin here to help get this over the finish line for Phil, what would you do?
I'd say, my question to you, Phil, is, do you enjoy the work more than anyone else? Would you do it for free and you have fun doing it?
Not that work exactly. I am slightly taking this job for the money, but I do also, I am very excited about what they're making. Just, if I had $1 million, I wouldn't be doing exactly what they're doing, but, I am very interested in in doing it. Yeah.
And I think you kind of self-prove it to yourself in a sense of showing your worth, knowing your worth. I think reiterating what you said, like I know a lot of people who don't understand the deep intricacies of this specific game developing, how to do all those logistics and all those formulas and all those coding and all those logic-based commands. I think being able to show that and produce that and tell them that I know a lot more in the sense of my worth and I can actually do the work and go under and research the problem myself, fix it for you kind of thing. I think that's, remember that for yourself.
Love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Ray, let's throw it over to you. What would you do?
Couple of things come to mind. Like, first of all, and maybe Wes, you can help me with this language. Like, two things. The first thing, don't help me with. Don't be emotionally invested in the outcome, Phil. Like, you have all that experience from the software
company. It's hard not to.
I know,
when it changed everything.
Dude,
but
it's the hardest. And I'll explain why.
Sorry, because he's right. Like it's just funny because all of us know Phil on here, and it's like, it would change a significant amount, and his response is perfect. Hard not because it would change, just everything. Yeah.
Wes, I don't want him going in there. I need this so bad. Like white knuckles.
Yep.
I want to.
Yeah, I know. I'm really trying not to be like that.
I want him going in there. I can do this job. And Wes, you can help me with this language. I've got all my skill set from that enterprise software company I worked for, and I didn't wait for someone to hire me as lead designer. I lead designered my own game. And so if you say I don't have it, so they're not going to say you don't have lead designer experience, Phil. And I don't want to hear from you don't have lead designer experience, because your most recent entry on your resume is lead designer, right? And if they don't see that, you tell them that.
Remember, that's your issue, not theirs.
Yeah. So Wes, how would you phrase that? Like in kind of like scripting. What would be the scripting on that? Like, Phil, I don't see lead designer anywhere on your resume.
Yep. Yeah, and Kyle, if you don't mind pinning this, so this particular part, I think this could be a good little clip. I'm a huge fan of the quote, "You do not rise to the level of the occasion, you fall to the level of the training." I think that is way more practical of a quote than, just wait for the circumstances to bring you up to the level of execution. I think that sounds really good on a postcard or a bumper sticker, like Larry says, but I actually think it's not really the reality 99% of the time. 99% of the time, it's, did you put in the reps? And for you, Phil, whether it be for an interview or with anything else, that's what you can fall back on, right? If you've created things in the past, it's very easy for that creator to say, hey, here's what I've created. So the interview is just much more of a showcase of what you've done. I think you are perfect for that type of role, because I agree with what Ray's saying. You've actually done it. You don't have to put marketing around it as much of just saying, hey, right, tap into that vein of your passion like you've done many times on this team. And it's like, you're a changed man. As soon as we get you to start talking about your craft, you just go off in a very good way. So rather than letting them oppress you with these questions, rather view those questions as like open gate. Dude, I think I wouldn't be, if you can tap into that and just remember that you built something that probably 99% of your competitors in that interview have not done, just stay there. It's probably going to be a 1 or 2 question interview, because as soon as they give you the ball, you can run for a mile with it. Versus everybody else, they're going to have to probably ask 55 questions because they're going to give 1-sentence answers. That's my guess, But anyway, I hope that's helpful, bud.
Yeah, it's extremely helpful. Thanks everyone.
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
And dude, the more you can get into like the nuances, I think that's going to sell them. In my view, like, and this is why again, I'm making this up. This is why I created this part of the game to be this way. Here's why I chose the colors, dude. to give Kyle here a lot of credit. The reason that he's working with me is because he showed up to the interview. Number one, he took notes, but then when I gave him a question, dude, he gave me a whole avalanche of answers. I could tell that he was a practitioner, not just a philosopher where he read the text from somebody else. Right. And then I looked into his resume, and guess what? He built it. It looked beautiful. He has his own little micro site. The other competition didn't. I think we filtered 50 something resumes and got down to Kyle because he's actually a practitioner, not a philosopher. So Phil, I think you're going to nail it tomorrow, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, dudes. I love you guys. Go kick butt. Phil, if you need to chat with me on the side, let me know, but I think you're going to kill it, buddy.
Yes, Phil, hit me up on WhatsApp if you have any questions or if you want to workshop anything. But
hey, thank you guys.
You got this.